Let's get more on this. We have U.S. and international affairs analyst Calvin Dark joining us. Hello, Calvin. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Right. Canadian Prime Minister, just spoke there. He says the arrest of Meng Wanzhou is not political. What do you think it is?
Well, you know what we say here in Washington, D.C., everything's political. I think what Prime Minister Trudeau was trying to convey was that in as far as the judicial process, how that's going to play out, Canada's going to make sure that political considerations don't dictate that. But the situation is inherently geopolitical because it not only involves China's relationship with Canada, but also China's relationship with the U.S. and the U.S.'s relationship with Canada. So it's really complicated and inherently political.
China has embarked on what some call an aggressive drive to overtake America's dominance in technology and, of course, global economic leadership. With this new development, what exactly could the United States have against Meng? Is this some sort of tactics, perhaps?
Well, I think it probably is easiest to think about it in like three layers. One is you have the security layer, because the U.S., along with many countries in Europe, are not quite sure that while the company says they are private and owned by their employees, that they aren't in some ways influenced by the Chinese government when it comes to possibly putting in backdoors into the technological solutions that they supply to U.S. consumers and companies. Then you have the trade war issues, where obviously if there's a way that President Trump can use this as leverage in the negotiations, he'll use it. And then the third level is Iran. Because as we know, while the charges haven't been clearly or publicly named as to why she's being held, we do know that there's a request by the United States for extradition for allegations of her company using some type of scheme to get around the Iran sanctions. So there's a lot going on there.
All right, Calvin, so Russia has joined in the conversation with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, saying the detention shows how Washington imposes its laws beyond its jurisdiction. Does Moscow have a point there, or did the United States misstep here?
No, Russia has a point, and their point is that they don't want countries to have influence outside of their borders, because that would affect a lot of what Russia does around the world, from poisonings to other efforts to destabilize governments. And this is something that didn't start with President Trump. So I think that's just sour grapes from Foreign Minister Lavrov, because he doesn't like the fact that the U.S. has influence in other areas around the world where Russia doesn't.
Right, so President Trump and his Chinese counterpart recently came to some sort of trade war truce at the G20 summit. Does this now jeopardize this?
I don't think it jeopardizes it, but this whole question is probably the most interesting to me because it's like a spy novel. Because my first reaction when I heard about the charges and the arrest of the Huawei CFO was, what if China starts arresting or threatening to arrest American executives in China or in countries where they would have extradition authority? So this opens up a whole new can of worms. However, most analysts believe that China wouldn't take that step, because if you want to get companies aligned with the Trump administration against China, then you start threatening their executives. So I don't think they're going to do it, but I do think that this takes up a notch the trade negotiations, and I think this actually works in the U.S.'s favor, because this is it's a part of pride for China, Huawei, so they're going to be very careful in how they respond.
Right, international affairs analyst Calvin Dark, thank you so much for joining us today on The World Today.